Thousands of you have been getting in touch with questions about coronavirus. In this evening's Your Questions Answered, we are going to focus on debt and universal credit. So let's answer some of your many questions with Kate Bell, head of the Social and Economics Department of the Trades Union Congress. And also joining us is Richard Lane, Director of External Affairs at the debt charity Step Change. So we've had lots of questions on this specific issue. Kate, let's start with you. We've got a question from James Antoine who asks, is universal credit only available to those who have been released from their job?
So, hi, thanks for having me. I just wanted to say at the beginning, the TUC does lots of work on universal credit, but I'm not a benefits advisor. Everyone's individual situation will be different, and it's really important that you get advice on your own situation. A couple of really good websites I prefer you to, Citizens Advice. There's a website called Turn to Us, that's 2 as in the number 2, and they've got a wealth of information. So anything I say, it's worth kind of checking up for your own individual circumstances there. So just to turn to James's question, is universal credit only available to those who've been released from their job? No. You might be able to get it if your hours have dropped and you're on a lowish income. You can check that benefit calculator I mentioned, but basically how universal credit works is it's made up of a basic amount, amounts for any kids you might have, and an amount for any rental costs. If you've got some earnings, that will reduce the amount of universal credit you get. So the basic rule is for every £1 you earn, your universal credit entitlement goes down by 63 pence. But if you've got children or if you're sick or disabled, there's what's called a work allowance, which means you can earn a certain amount before that taper kicks in. So basically, if your income's dropped recently, definitely worth checking if you might be eligible for universal credit, because it can support people who are in work still.
OK, Kate, thanks so much. And thanks for your caveat at the beginning. Of course, always worth double checking everything. Richard, Wes is asking, why are universal credit still taking debt recovery deductions and continuing with sanction deductions in this current climate? He says he thinks it's extremely unfair and harsh.
Yeah, of course, we would add the same caveat to the advice that we give on here. It's no replacement or substitute for full debt advice. But what I would say is excellent question, Wes, and something that we've been asking as well. And we know from our clients that actually just a small deduction from their universal credit is putting a huge amount of people into very difficult financial situations. You know, broadly, universal credit was a scheme that was designed to offer people the minimum amount that they need to live on. Debatable whether it does that at all. So broadly, deductions aren't helpful when that happens. We've heard some noise that potentially the Department of Work and Pension is going to look at stopping deductions at this time. We haven't had all of the details on that or confirmation yet, but we are hearing the right noises that is going to be the case, and it's something that we're continuing to push for at Step Change. So I'd say watch this space, look out for an announcement, and if that does happen, that's incredibly welcome because people need that cash in their pocket now.
So Wes, watch this space, Richard. Thanks so much. Now, Kate, Jake wants to know, he's moving in with his partner so that his parents can self-isolate. He adds that my partner is on universal credit. Will she be able to receive this if I am living with her?
So the basic answer is that if Jake's got earnings, those earnings are going to affect the amount his partner gets if the government sees you as living together. So what the government guidance kind of says is that his partner would need to report what's called a change of circumstances in her universal credit situation, and that's when someone's moved in with you, basically. The rules around living together, when it counts as you're living together, are quite complicated, and this is a really good one to get some advice on, but definitely worth looking into it because the government could see that as a change of circumstances that his partner has to report.
Under these difficult circumstances. Kate, thanks so much. Right, let's turn to Richard. We've got a question from Sohail. We pay a debt agency right now, but we're struggling with payment for council tax debt, which is collected by them. He wants to know, he's tried to call them, but there's been no answer as, well, like many offices, this one is closed. So can you tell me if they will come over to my house to demand payments, or will they give us more time to pay?
Yeah, we're hearing a lot about enforcement action, or bailiffs as some people might hear them. We have been told that enforcement action face-to-face on the doorstep is going to be suspended. That is for the protection of the public and for the people who work for those enforcement organisations. That's really, really positive because obviously with social distancing and the need to alleviate some of that financial pressure, that is the right step and we really welcome that. It might be that you still get contacted in other ways, either via the phone or via email. I'd say it's worth a few things: explaining your financial circumstance to them, and see if there is a way of a more affordable repayment for you to go on at this time. It also might be worth you actually speaking to your local council and see if it's possible for them to take the debt back off that collection agency and work with you directly for a more affordable repayment plan during this time, including potentially a payment holiday if you're struggling at the moment.
Yeah, lots of stress under already difficult circumstances. Richard, thanks. Kate from Martin, his start date for a new job has been pushed back. We hear this a lot, don't we? Can I apply for Universal Credit in the meantime, asks Martin.
Yeah, well, sorry to hear about the start date for the job being pushed back. Basically, yes, if he's living on no income, if his income has dropped during this period, he should be able to claim for Universal Credit, although really important that he reports that change of circumstances when he does start work. I thought it might be worth mentioning if Martin's got any redundancy payments from the last job, they're treated as part of your savings, basically, for Universal Credit. If your savings go over £16,000, then you're not eligible. If they're under that amount, then you might still be able to get Universal Credit. But again, worth checking one of those benefit calculators to see exactly how that will work.
So, yeah, congratulations on the new job. Let's fingers crossed it won't be too long when you get into it. Now, Paul asks, Richard, I'm self-employed. I don't know when I will receive money again. Meanwhile, my bills are due. I'm worried that whilst most have advised me to cancel direct debit and pay when I can, that I'm going to get into serious debt. He asks, what should I do?
The areas where we have seen a package of measures to support self-employed people, but it does seem like that there are a number of people who that's not reaching. So broadly, the announcement would be that you can claim up to 80% of your average profits over the last 36 months. But there are lots of people who that's not going to catch. And importantly, that support is not going to be available to people until June, which means that there's a lot of people who are going to be out of pocket in the meantime. We'd say two things. It might be that you're entitled to Universal Credit to help you get through in the meantime. It's certainly worth you checking that to see if you would be eligible, and that might be might help you make some of those bills in the meantime. And we have heard from lots of people who are creditors or the people you owe money to, your phone company and people like that, that they are saying they are taking a compassionate approach at this time. So I wouldn't say unilaterally cancel direct debits or anything like that. I would say get in touch with people who you might owe money to, or bills are due, and see if there's any chance of you getting a payment holiday.
OK, thank you. Now, Kate, Rose asks, Rose is a hairdresser. She's lost her job during all this isolation period. She says she has some money in savings. Will this stop her from being able to apply for Universal Credit?
Well, really sorry to hear about Rose's job. One thing we might encourage her to do is ask if she's employed by that hairdresser, ask them to put her on the job retention scheme rather than losing her job if she lost it after the 1st of March, and they can definitely rehire her and then get the support from the government to pay 80% of her wages. Or if she's self-employed, as Richard was saying, she might be able to get support through that self-employed income scheme. Just around, will her savings disqualify her from getting Universal Credit? Well, it depends how much they are. If you've got over £16,000 in savings, that at the moment will stop you applying, although I think that's something government really should be looking at in these difficult times, because lots of people might have been, saving for a house, saving for equipment if they're self-employed, and at the moment could be kind of knocked out of the system because of those rules. If at the moment you've got savings between £6,000 and £16,000, government's going to assume that you're getting some income from those savings and they'll take that income into account when working out how much Universal Credit you're entitled to. Again, it's a really good idea to use a benefits calculator to see how that might affect how much you can get. But if you have got savings less than £16,000, you should definitely look into applying for Universal Credit to get that vital support.
OK, Rose, good luck with that. And we've got quick time for a question from Hannah. Richard, Hannah asks, I've had my hours cut by half, only getting half the pay, obviously. And Hannah earns too much for benefits, but not enough to pay her bills. She's in a conundrum like so many people. What can she do?
Yeah, sorry to hear that, Hannah. That is difficult. And I know it's really obvious to say, but the first thing to do is to kind of sit down and make sure that you've done a really detailed budget. Are you really clear what you've got going out of your bank every month and what you've got coming in. Is there any of that you can look to cut or trim or delay at this point? Have you spoken to people that you're going to owe money to next month and see if they are offering payment holidays? And then I'll say, actually, if that's not going to make ends meet, and it sounds, Hannah, like that's going to be the case, that is going to be difficult, you might want to get in touch with someone like Step Change, and we can help you access maybe hardship funds or kind of take you through a debt advice session to see what your options are.
OK, Kate and Richard, thank you so much as always. And as they were saying, just to double check everything on the websites as well. But for the time being, thank you so much. Your questions also, thank you.